Will parts of New England and New York see a snowstorm next week? I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Hanrahan. It's a possibility, but at this point, it looks like the odds are relatively low. Something we're going to have to watch over the next couple days. I'm not too worried about it just yet, but if you like wintry weather, it's worth keeping an eye on things over the next several days. So I want to dive into some of the computer guidance that we have and show you what we're looking at with a developing jet stream pattern that's going to be very different from what we're dealing with today. In fact, it's pretty warm across the Northeast. So here's what we've got going on. I've got the map here. This is for Thanksgiving, and you can see there's a big dip in the jet stream across portions of the Great Lakes and the Northeast, and that is allowing colder air to come down from the north. We're going to have a cold front that passes through as we go through the overnight hours tonight. And then behind it, we get some colder air. So we get this dip in the jet stream, and that's going to drop the temperatures a lot. So it gets a little bit more interesting, right? You get some colder air around this time of year. There's plenty of cold up to the north. The question is, what happens from there? So this first little dip in the jet stream is going to move on out. So it moves up to the north and to the east. It moves up toward portions of Canada. And we actually allow some milder air back in here Sunday and Monday as we get a brief sort of reprieve from that cooler pattern. But another front comes through Sunday night. Let's advance the graphic here and I'll show you what we've got for next week. Another front comes on through. Then we get a bigger dip in the jet stream that moves across portions of the eastern United States. And that is what we're watching. When you get a dip in the jet stream, frequently on the eastern edge of it, you've got the potential for some kind of wintry weather pattern to develop and some kind of storm. And the question is, well, do we get a storm and does it come to the north or does it go out to sea? That is probably going to have to do with just how sharp the trough is. If the trough is a little rounder and a little wider at the base, it'll allow the storm system to head out into the Atlantic Ocean. If the jet stream is a little tighter, we got a more significant, a sharper little dip, that may bring some of the moisture up the coast. And that's what some of our computer models have been showing. So there's plenty of cold air around. This is a look at temperatures up in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And I'm going to bring the map here to Monday morning. So this is early next week. And you can see this over Canada. This is some really cold air. Temperature is 5,000 feet above our heads, 30 degrees below 0 Celsius. So there's a lot of cold up to the north. And that cold is going to be nearby on Tuesday. So you can see the cold sort of building in to New England. So the cold is here, and there's some moisture down to the south that'll be streaming up. And so again, the question is, does the storm move out to sea or does the storm sort of come up the coast? And that's what we have to wait and see and figure out. So let's go through a couple different computer models for you. I want to start with the GFS computer model. This is the American computer model, and it actually has the best look for this storm. It looks the most significant. And we'll start with tonight's cold front. The cold front moves on through. Lake effect snow, some pretty good lake effect snow over the next couple days across portions of New York and really all the Great Lakes. And then we get a cold front on Sunday that brings in a chance for some showers. It turns colder again behind that front. And then check out the moisture coming up from the south. So you can see that moisture here moving through the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf states, and beginning to move up. And the trough is sharp enough here that it sort of allows that moisture to come up and it gets a storm to form off the mid-Atlantic. And if this were to happen, we get a decent snowstorm in southern New England, probably like a 3 to 6 inch kind of deal in some areas, maybe a little bit of mixing at the coast. But this particular computer model does show a winter storm for early next week, especially on Tuesday. So that's the day that we're watching here, Tuesday. So that's one possibility. Now, before you get all excited here, let's take a look at some other computer models, because some other computer models are not quite as enthused. So this is the European. As I mentioned, the flatter base of that trough, instead of the winds coming out of the south to sort of tug everything up to the north, it's a little more progressive and it sort of allows the moisture to move out to sea. And so we'll take a look at what happens here. This is Tuesday, and you can see that system moves from the Gulf of Mexico out into the mid-Atlantic, but it never really gets a good tug to the north. So we don't see a system here that would bring anything significant. Maybe some light snow. It looks like there's a little northern stream piece of the jet stream that might move on through, but that's not much. So not a whole lot to worry about there. So that's the European computer model. And the European computer model is our better computer model. It tends to do better in summer and in winter. And so if you have the two, you'd sort of hedge toward the European. So not the best news if you're a snow lover, but, that's what it is. So a zoomed in version here. Let's take a look a little closer to New England. This is how things look for Tuesday. You get a storm off the coast, moves off to the east and southeast of the Cape and Islands. It's not terribly strong. This is not a blizzard, even worst case scenario, but this would put down a solid stripe of snow. And it's pretty cold. It looks like it would be cold enough for snow just inland from Long Island Sound and inland from the ocean. So Boston down the I-84 corridor and the northern suburbs of New York City. If that were to happen, we would get some snow, some accumulating snow, the first accumulating snow of the season. So possibility, can't rule it out, but that's just one scenario. So let's take a look here at the European ensembles to get a look at more computer guidance. So I showed you the European model that shows the storm missing. Well, let's take a look at the European model with 50 different little tweaks to it to see if we get an idea of it showing anything differently. So this is Tuesday, and you can see the average, the blend of those together does bring some moisture up into New England, but notice if you go sort of toggle it back and forth here, notice the system pretty much stays to the south. Most of the moisture stays to the south, so more of like a glancing blow. So at least right now, this has come farther offshore than what it showed last night. So this would lower the odds of getting accumulating snow. But it's there. I mean, there's something there off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic, so it's worth watching. So if this were to verify, not much, maybe some light snow, maybe some light accumulating snow, but most of the system, most of that storm would miss. So that's one of our computer models. And here's another way to visualize the same thing. I'm going to go through time here. Let's get to Tuesday. All right, so here we go. This is Tuesday into Wednesday. Each little L here represents a low pressure system because remember, we're running this computer model 50 different times. And there are a few that are close to New England, but not a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe you could argue 9 and 10. So that's like a 1 in 5, so 10 out of 50. Yeah, I mean nothing that really jumps out at you here. But there's a lot of spread. The farther out you get in time, the worse our computer models get. So, yeah, that's something we'll be watching to see how this changes. And as we get closer, you start to see things cluster more closely most of the time. And so we get a better handle on things. European ensembles, in terms of snowfall, the odds of getting more than 3 inches of snow outside of northern Massachusetts and maybe northwest Connecticut, pretty low. This was a little more bullish last night, but it's since come down. So not the most exciting look there. And as we take a look at some of our other computer guidance here, I don't know if I can get this up here. Maybe I can. Want to show here we go. I can do this. The GFS ensembles. Definitely with a better look there. You're looking at a 10 to 30% risk of more than 3 inches of snow across southern New England. What you see to the north across Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and New York, that's different. That's not from this system. That's over the next several days, adding up to that for the next 6 days, some of the lake effect snow, etc. But this has more of a signal here for southern New England. But it's not a big signal. It's a little signal. So again, we're going to be watching this system. It's really our first sort of chance for some wintry weather this season. The odds of getting anything significant now seem pretty low, but worth watching. Anytime you get something on the weather maps, if you're a weather geek, when you start to see something popping up 6-7 days out, when it's the first one of the season, you give it a second look for sure. And this one did have my attention. Looked at it this morning when I got up, but again, right now, nothing too substantial showing up here on our computer guidance that's alarming. Worst case scenario would be sort of a moderate snow that would be impactful, a few inches, have to shovel it, have to plow it, that kind of deal. I think the high end of this system, the bar is not particularly high for sort of the highest rung that this storm could be. And there's a pretty good chance this stays to the south. That said, we'll be watching it for you. We'll keep you posted over the next couple of days. And hey, more importantly, have an awesome Thanksgiving. So we're going to do these as often as we can through the winter when things get a little interesting. So make sure you like and subscribe to our pages. and we'd love to give you these updates, a little behind-the-scenes look at the meteorology, because I love talking about it, and hopefully you do too. So thanks for watching. Have an awesome Thanksgiving.